Now, what inspired you to get into music?
I don't know, it was organic. I played in the school band. I played the clarinet from when I was about 10, and I just loved being in the band and playing in the orchestra. And my mom was a singer, and so were my grandparents on my mom's side. So there was a lot of music in the house. And then one day in 6th grade, I started singing for something, and my voice was really incredibly big. And it was the discovery. I had no idea. Nobody else did either. And then I just kind of got into it from there.
So your voice is that good naturally? You never had to get any training for it?
I've had training since. I've had bad training and good training, which is very interesting to me because I took some lessons in New York, just kind of from a casual recommendation, and ultimately they were very, very bad vocal lessons. The guy didn't know what he was doing and gave me some really bad advice.
Ouch.
And I had trouble for a while because I kept following his policies for warm-ups. And then I eventually took opera lessons, and that was spectacular. I mean, they really, really understand the voice from, centuries of doing it properly, and it impacted my life tremendously. I mean, I've never had a problem since, ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, who were your early musical influences?
Steven Tyler was a huge musical influence. I just love that song "Dream On," and now here it comes out. I loved Foreigner, and Journey. All those great male singers that could really had these really powerful voices that were really strong in the high registers. Mm-hmm. And of course, I loved Hart and Stevie Nicks and Linda Ronstadt, and so I was inspired by the singers, I think, more than just bands.
Now, when did you decide to take music seriously as a career?
I decided, I was in a band when I was in high school, and my parents, I think, thought it was a hobby. I was working about 3 nights a week, but I was, considering doing it professionally, and I applied to college. I applied to NYU, and when I went in for my in-person interview, I felt really intimidated by all the other more urban or metropolitan kids that were there also applying, so I convinced myself that I hadn't gotten in, and I made the decision then, my senior year in high school, that I was going to be a singer and I wasn't going to try to fall back on anything. And ultimately I did get in, and I got a scholarship, but by that time I'd already made up my mind, and much to my family's chagrin, I just blew it off and moved to the Poconos, to Stroudsburg, actually, and was in a band there for a while, and then I moved to Manhattan a year later, and that was it.
What was the name of the band in Stroudsburg? Because that's only about an hour from where I am.
I know, it was just me. It was Fiona. I was playing with my friend Harry, and because all the little places, all the little honeymoon places, mm-hmm. Like it was pretty easy to work because there was a great need for entertainment, and some of my friends were in this band called Thea and Company, and Harry and I did kind of folky music. And we just played around, and we made some pretty good money because there were only 2 of us. And that was it. And then a little while later, I moved to Manhattan, and I was in a band called No Excuse and stuff like that.
Now, what else were you doing before you got signed to Atlantic Records? Did you have any official releases?
No. What I was singing, excuse me, I was singing around town a lot and doing demos on my own, kind of hustling. And I had a manager who was working with Scott Jarrett, who's Keith Jarrett's little brother. Scott actually, I think, was up in Stroudsburg for a while. That's how I knew those people. And I did go and do a demo with a guy who had a deal with Columbia, and I was offered a kind of a singles deal on Columbia with the song called "I Rock the Boy."
Wow.
And it was, but at that time, Atlantic was interested too, and more interested in me as from an LP point of view and a rock artist, and that was what I was more interested in. So I went to Atlantic.
Were you sending out a lot of demos before Atlantic signed you?
Oh yeah, I mean it was a long process. I was 22. I was very young when this happened for me, but it felt like an eternity because when I was 21, all of my friends were graduating from college, and I felt like the supreme loser of all time, with nothing to show for the previous 4 years, really. Because I'm competitive and ambitious, and I felt pretty scared, which is silly because I was so young. Excuse me. But so I did do demos. I went to Atlanta, and I did a demo with the Dixie Dregs, which was really amazing. And Eddie Offord produced it. He was the producer for Yes and for a lot of those Dregs records. And so Steve Morse kind of co-produced it, and the Dregs all played on it. And that was the main demo, I think, that led to the record deal. Maybe, I don't know. And then I had done demos up in the Poconos with Donnie Kisselbach and Marty Druckman and all these guys who lived around there. So yeah, I was slogging away.
Now, how would you describe your self-titled Atlantic release?
Fiona, that was how would I describe it? Oh my God, I when I listen to it, I really like my singing on it. Maybe there's a little too much screaming on some of the songs, but it was very passionate. And I hated the cover picture. That was just me being intimidated and not kind of pushing. It was absurd. There was one that was even worse than that. And I was too shy to just tell the person that this was really hideous. And my management wasn't very strong. And so I've lived looking at that forever. And I feel so silly. I look like an aerobics instructor. But there's my narcissism. I care about the cover. But I love the music on that. Rescue You is one of my favorite songs. And Love Makes You Blind was a big deal for me because it was in a movie. And it was a great time in my life.
Were there any music videos off your first album?
Oh, yeah. There was a video for Love Makes You Blind that had clips from that movie No Small Affair in it.
Oh.
And there was a video for Talk to Me that did pretty well. There weren't that many videos out then, so it did okay.
Yeah, I wish VH1 would show them now, but they don't.
I know. I often, actually, I have a lot of friends who had records out in the 80s, and I would really enjoy seeing all that old stuff, but what are you going to do? Excuse me, I have the flu.
You all right? Do you have a little fever?
Not anymore.
Cool.
I'm on my way back up. Okay.
Now, did you meet producer Beau Hill around the time of Beyond the Pale?
Yeah, I actually, Rat was on Atlantic, and I really loved their second album. They played, Lay It Down and You're in Love for me in-house at Atlantic, and they said the producer is Beau Hill, and Beau was pretty popular at the company at that time, so they recommended him, and that's when I met him, like right a few months before we actually went in the studio to do the record.
Now, how did your working relationship with Beau Hill develop into a marriage?
Oh my God, a short marriage. Well, I think we kind of fell in love during the making of the record, and I just was crazy about him then. He was really organized and professional, and I thought he was really good looking, and I just fell for him, and it was obviously mutual. So after the record was over, or maybe even before it was finished, we got together, and I was involved with him for many years before we got married, and then we got married and broke up immediately.
Wow.
But what can you do?
Now, Beyond the Pale is a really great AOR album. Now, was it approached any differently than your first album?
Yeah, one of the things that was influencing me at that time was when I was touring for the first record with Talk to Me on it, I felt like all the songs had the same tempo. And when I was playing live, I felt a little bit frustrated that we couldn't really get out of that middle kind of 4/4 beat or the power ballad thing, and I felt like it would have been nice for the audience for us to have something a little bit more rhythmic. So I was looking for songs specifically that I thought I would enjoy doing live, and so that's what some of that's where the genesis of some of the songs. I can't remember the question actually. What was it?
Well, just your approach with that as opposed to
yeah,
your first album.
that was the approach, and then Beau had a point of view. I don't necessarily agree with some of the decisions that he made about my singing on some of this stuff. I think he really tried to change me a bit. Now, when I listen to it in retrospect, I understand what his ideas were now, but at the time it was really difficult for me to sing them the way he wanted me to sing them, instead of him kind of trying to bring out from me what I liked to sing. It was just a stylistic difference of opinion on some of the parts. So it's interesting for me as a singer and as a person who is looking back in time. So